Hey friends, welcome, welcome. Welcome back. It's our first Wednesday of the month. We're finding ourselves um, in, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, in the beginning of summer. We're the first Wednesday of July 2022 this month, and I'm grateful to have you all here and deepening this conversation around Ayurveda and the mind. We've been doing these monthly workshops for the last probably year and a half now, and diving into the various topics around Ayurvedic psychology, healing trauma through the lens of Ayurveda, and how to really integrate spiritual practice with really deep emotional and mental emotional resolution, kind of unloading and resolving emotional baggage has been a big part of our topics, or traumatic imprints, things in our conditioning that maybe are making the nervous system hypervigilant or hypersensitive. If you consider yourself a highly sensitive person or empath, you'll find these trainings to be really supportive in those realms, both informationally and experientially. So we really try to combine practice in these three community workshop series. Um, we do a little bit of practice together, and then we also do information sharing and teaching, and then also I offer prompts, usually for some type of self-reflection that you can take with you, and practices to do in between sessions. So we really try to look at this intersection, like I was saying, integrating spiritual practice and spiritual practice in the way that is most aligned for you or speaks to your heart and your spiritual path, which is unique for every individual, with the mental emotional healing, and really bridging that into physical health and physical healing. And this is also in particular supportive for people who find themselves in long-term funky symptoms that just keep going on, especially when the doctors say nothing's wrong with you, and that drives you nuts, because I was there. And I luckily found Ayurveda and this approach, and by the good graces of my teachers and the masters that have come before me, I hope to share some of their wisdom and knowledge with you through this medium, which has really helped me resolve a lot of chronic illness. And so if you're experiencing chronic illness or stubborn symptoms that have, or just feeling icky or fatigued or foggy brain, or are experiencing some kind of chronic health, chronic pain, and when we say chronic, just any pain symptoms or discomfort or feeling of offness or illness that's lasted for over 3 months in your body, there's always some kind of bridge that we need to do therapeutically, not only physically, but also mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, to help bring about lasting change. So that's what these workshops are really all about. It's not only Ayurveda in the mind, but we do dive into a deeper piece in the mental and emotional aspect. And so the last several months, we have been talking a bit more about the biological connection, the physical health connection to anxiety, to chronic illness, to pain, and to resolving unsupportive imprints that are in the nervous system. And we've talked a lot about how to create safety in the nervous system through optimizing the digestion and various things from an Ayurvedic perspective. So always feel free to visit my YouTube channel, where I have all of these recordings up. And if you are watching this recording, please also join our community and get the recording sent to your inbox, and also notifications of upcoming classes that are live, where you can come here, ask questions, and all of that. And all the links will be posted below this video, that you can connect in that way. Hi Marianne, nice to see you. Thanks for being here. And hi Dawn. A couple new friends have joined since I started chatting. So, yeah, today, like I said, the last several months we've been talking a little bit about the physical piece around creating more safety in the nervous system, and how to create this foundation of health and vitality to then go to the next level of doing the inner emotional work. And then this month and of the upcoming months, we're starting to look at the spiritual and emotional connection. In order to really effectively do resolve the emotional imprints or emotional baggage or traumatic imprints out of the nervous system, out of the body, we need to create this foundation. We need to create a foundation that is stability in the nervous system, safety in the nervous system, and an internal disposition towards our spiritual North Star. So, the understanding in Ayurveda is that all healing comes from the divine and comes from aligning with nature, the natural flow of the seasons, of the elements, and how they move throughout the day, how they move throughout the month, how they move throughout the year, how they move throughout different time periods of your life. This is the circadian rhythms that we spoke to in previous classes. So, aligning with these rhythms allows our body to feel safe, more stable, and allows our emotions to, if we personify our emotions into our inner child and say, okay, we're going to care for this inner child. What does our inner child need? Stability, consistency, needs to be fed, needs to go to sleep early, needs to, be nourished in different ways, needs to have some time for lightness and play and all of that. So we kind of look at, in some respects, the physical body. When we can create that stability in reparenting our inner child or repatterning our physical body's tendencies into something that is more supportive of us living in alignment with our nature, then yeah, everything works better, and it creates this. The mind is more clear, and it creates this stable platform for the deeper stuff to be worked with. And so all healing comes from the divine. In fact, Ayurvedic psychology, from the perspective of Ayurvedic psychology, is that our physical body is actually a crystallization of the mind. So I'll say that once more. Your physical body is a crystallization of the mind. So it's very normal if you go to an Ayurvedic practitioner that, or especially a Vaidya who's an Ayurvedic physician, if you go to them, they should be working with you not only on the physical level, but what's happening in the mind. And we just reflexively point to here, but our mind is not in our head. Our mind is in every cell of the body. So our body is a crystallization of mind and our belief systems, and also carries imprints from beyond just this life, so energetically. So therefore, in order to bring about the greatest healing, the deepest healing, the healing even on the metaphysical levels, on the energetic levels, we must not only establish this foundation like we spoke about in previous months on the physical level, we need to now really prioritize connection with the divine, because it is only in connection with the divine creator that created this body, that created your body, that has the power to change and to heal the body. So we need to connect first. And this is simply connecting with true self. So today's class is all about really, how do I know when I'm in true self? And how do I know when I'm in not self? How do I know when I'm blended or merged with these other parts of me, these other sub-personalities? Or how do I know when I'm like in a triggered state? Most of us will know when we're in a triggered state. But how do I know when I'm just in mind, when I'm just thinking cognitively? And how do I know when I'm in self? So what we want to do is cultivate self energy increase the time that we spend connecting to the source of our life, connecting to the source, the creator of these bodies, which, by the way, dwells inside of our deepest heart, every single one of us, and is our innermost, dearest, most friend, guiding our every movement and action, if only we can allow our perception to be subtle enough to listen. And from that place, all the healing comes, all the questions are answered, and life makes sense. This crazy life actually makes sense to some degree. And so this is where today's session, we tap more into this different kind of topic, this little bit less tangible topic, strengthening connection with true self, the part of you that is completely unaffected by dis-ease, unaffected by the tumultuous emotions, fluctuations of feelings, sensations, emotions, the part of you that's eternal, and the part of you that has an infinite wellspring of energy and goodness to provide your whole system to heal and remember why we're really here. And so we'll also talk practically, so we'll talk on that high level, and we will offer practical techniques as well for establishing that connection every day, and also practices, Ayurvedic practices to tangibly reduce fear in the body. And we'll be weaving a lot of mantra chanting, Sanskrit chanting, I'll talk about that, into this practice, because Sanskrit is a beautiful language that is not on the level, there's so much I could say about it, but it's not on the level of trying to communicate a thought. It's actually the closest vibrational essence to the very cloth from which we're cut. So it's a vibrational language that when we chant it, when you hear it, it resonates on a level that it awakens all of the dormant parts of ourself to the higher nature, to the true nature, connecting to true self. So that's why mantra, we use mantra, this tool for the mind to connect to the higher energies that bring about healing, that bring about mental clarity, and all of that. So we'll start today. As always, we start these workshops with more practice. This was just my long-winded intro of all the things that are important and kind of orienting us to where we are today. So let us take a moment to tune within. I'll guide you through a little bit of breath practice like we usually do, and then I'll read you a contemplative poem that will kind of ties into our topic for today, and we'll have a moment of a silent meditation, and then we'll continue with our dialogue. Okay, thank you, Anna. Okay, so just if you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes, or you can just direct your gaze downward, which just allows your energy to come into a calm state. Take a few deep breaths, and as you breathe in, let your whole lungs expand, and as you breathe out, just let that air gush out. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. And then a couple more at your own pace. Good. Bring your hands down to your belly and really trying to relax the belly. And as you exhale, try to feel the exhale move your navel towards the spine. So you're drawing your belly in as you exhale. And as the exhale becomes longer, the inhale naturally becomes longer without forcing it. So just really allowing the belly to relax and expand on the inhale, and then on the exhale for it to draw inward, releasing all the air out. Good. And so we're going to transition to 3 parts. So you're going to breathe into the belly, then the ribs, then the upper chest. And you're going to sip in each section. And then we're going to exhale from top to bottom. So chest, ribs, and belly. So you just want to notice that the belly is relaxed and that it's expanding on the inhale. And then that inhale moves up and up. So go ahead and exhale all your air out. Take a full deep breath into the belly, then the ribs, then the chest. Exhale from chest, ribs, and belly. Inhale, belly, ribs, chest. Exhale, chest, ribs, and belly. Inhale, belly, ribs, and chest. Exhale, chest, ribs, and belly. Now making it smoother and smoother. Inhaling like a pitcher of water, filling up from bottom to top. And exhaling from top to bottom. Full 3-part breath from bottom to top, belly, ribs, chest. And exhaling, chest, ribs, belly. One more long, slow time, really sipping and savoring that air, that prana. And then just to relax, be still for a moment, and just notice the effect. Good. And now the next breath is a type of bee humming breath where you'll inhale just like we just did, full belly, ribs, and chest. But on the exhale, you'll make a very soft humming sound in your throat. Lips stay closed, teeth are apart, tongue presses to the roof of your mouth while you make the humming sound. And you just try to make the hum as long as possible. So exhaling all the air out, we'll do the bee humming breath together 3 times. Full deep breath in, belly, ribs, and chest. Exhaling with hum. hands and notice. And our third breath is called the mantra breath. And we chant 3 sounds, ha, ri, and om. And this circulates our energy and also creates waves of peace and calm, just like you may have noticed the bee humming breath does. So, ha, ri, om. So take a full deep breath, inhale, and just follow me with the sounds, Hari Om. Secrets are hidden in darkness and difficult nights. You awaken to a pang of aloneness, a howl of separation. This is the call of the Dark One, the roar of life seeking its source. The union you long for is within reach. Throw off all hesitation, become one with the fear. Plunge into the uncanny blackness, eyes wide open, as if there were no other choice. Vibrating with fierce tenderness, breathe intimately with the Lord of infinite space. Evam eva durnishayam Krishna paksha gamecharam Taimiram bhavayan rupam Bhairavam rupameshyati Evameva Durnishayam Krishna Paksha Gamecharam Taimiram Bhavayan Rupam Bhairavam Rupameshyati. Okay, is my sound okay? Okay. Radhika, is the sound better now? I wonder if my whole introduction was very
Yes,
okay.
it's better. It's better, thanks.
Thank you. Was the whole introduction so far very hard to hear me?
I could hear, but I had to really strain.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you so much for letting me know. I hope we're all good now. Maria also said it's good now. Oh, intro was okay, but missed the prayer. Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna read our this prayer once more. I'll sing it and and read the translation once more, our little contemplation for the day, for this session. Evam evam Duranishayam Krishna Pakshagamechram Taimiram Bhavayan Rupam Bhairavam Rupameshyati. Secrets are hidden in darkness and difficult nights. You awaken into a pang of aloneness, a howl of separation. This is the call of the Dark One, the roar of life seeking its source. The union you long for is within reach. Throw off all hesitation, become one with the fear, plunge into the uncanny blackness, eyes wide open as if there were no other choice. Vibrating with fierce tenderness, breathe intimately with the Lord of infinite space. Sometimes the fear, these imprints, this feeling of aloneness, this feeling of separation, this feeling of disconnection is exactly the priming, the medicine for cracking us open to leaning into the holy. It is the medicine. The feeling of longing is the reciprocal, it's two sides of the same coin of the reunion. So the ache in your heart is holy. This poem to me is speaking this sutra, and this poetic translation of this particular sutra is encouraging us to be brave or courageous, to dive into really meeting these different parts of ourself that are actually none other than the illusory energies that are keeping us separate from the divine, that create the illusion that we are separate from the divine, that make us think that we are separate from the divine, when the truth is the divine resides in our very heart of hearts. The divine is our dearest and nearest most friend, and the source of all true healing, the healing that is beyond this world, that is beyond this physical reality and this physical existence. And so how do we, what's the point? How do we condition the mind, or how do we know that in our bones? How do we know that in our body and know that in our cells when our bodies tell us so differently at times? When we get triggered from our environments or interactions or the bills or the duties and tasks, how do we remember amidst these things that we've been ingrained and trained are our survival, and that or traumatic imprints that just overwhelm us with grief or rage or emotion? How do we orient to the higher energy without bypassing, without suppressing further, right? In the Ayurveda and the Vedic system, there's this understanding, fundamentally, there's this prayer that goes, Om Purnamida Purnamidam Purnat Purna udachyate purnasya purnam adaya purnam eva vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Purna Om Purnami Ada Purnam Idam Purnat Purna. We hear this Purna over and over. This Purna is the fullness, the wholeness of consciousness. This whole world is full of Purna. It's full of divine consciousness, as well as our inner world. The outer world and our inner world is full of divine consciousness. Purna means we each are emanations of the divine source. So in the same way that the rays of the sun, the glow of the sun, points to the sun as the source, we are all the glow. We are little molecules, little parts and parcels of the light of the sun that emanates, that we are coming from the divine. And therefore, we are whole and complete as emanations of the divine. Meaning we have all of the faculties, all of the empowerment of the divine energies, all of the love, all of the compassion, all of the inner resources, all of the infinite wisdom is contained as we are a drop emanating out from the divine wholeness. And this prayer also goes on to say, when this drop of Purna, fullness of divine consciousness, emanates from, it takes nothing away from the source. Both are still whole and complete. Just like if you're to take a candle and light the candle from a source candle, the new candles that are lit are no longer are not taking anything away from the source candle. They both are full flames and are the same exact. So in that way, we are at our deepest essence Purna. We are already full of the divine qualities in our heart of hearts. So this is what differs in Ayurvedic psychology from other forms of psychology or psychologies that are limited only to the mind. Because the mind itself, from a Vedic perspective, creates an infinite loop of, I think I can figure something out, but really I'm just creating. The mind's job is to consume and to create problems that are unfixable. And then because they're unfixable, but they're ravenous, they have to change. They're constantly consuming, they're constantly doing. This is the nature of the mind. It creates and fabricates tasks, challenges, problems that are actually unsolvable. But then it loops it back into, you have to solve it. And it creates this negative feedback loop. So if we allow the mind to be the master over us, then our life is going to be full of challenge, pain, and suffering because it is in this constant feedback loop, like the serpent eating its own tail. But we can work with the nature of the mind because we are Purna. We are completely full of divine consciousness. We just need to water that part of us in our everyday cognitive awareness. We need to appoint and empower that divine energy to be the leader of our life, to be the leader of our psyche, to be the leader of the mind. Now the mind is not the master of us, but is a servant to the higher And then in that way, the mind actually becomes a great ally. So we are in these bodies, we have a mind. Our mind is a faculty and a tool that we can utilize for our spiritual advancement, which is the purpose of being here in these human bodies. And this is just the where we need to start as we are trying to like embark on the healing of the mind, the healing of the nervous system, the healing of traumas, the healing of imprints, the healing of sufferings in our body, the things that we've experienced, and how to create right relationship with the things that we experienced, especially when they were really hard and really painful. We must first, um, we must first appoint the the divine energy as the leader of our life, of our heart, of our subconscious mind. And from there, we can draw upon this infinite wellspring of illumination, of awakening, and of support into the lower mind, into the parts of us that do feel that fear, that separation, that longing, that aloneness, that have been burdened, that have been struggling on their own, trying to figure it out, trying to survive. We need to bridge between the two. So this is the foundation. This is the foundation of Ayurveda, Ayurvedic psychology, and this is the foundation of healing. And so how do we increase our connection to this true self? And how do we know? Well, in previous sessions, which you can go back onto my YouTube channel too and find, I did an extensive episode workshop, if you will, on Ayurveda and the Antakarana. This is the energetic organ you didn't know you had. So you can find Ayurveda workshop, trauma healing workshop, the energetic organ you didn't know you had. So I'm kind of loosely referring to this concept of mind, but the it's actually a whole energy organ that you didn't realize maybe that you had unless you've studied Ayurveda and yoga science before and this type of philosophy. But there are several different faculties that are part of the mind, or that mind is really just a part of, that take in experiences from the world around you and make meaning out of them, essentially. And these are, I won't go into great detail today, but all of these mental faculties that we have, there are ones that we need to kind of whip into shape, meaning we have to practice austerities or tapasya to condition, to support them being not the leader of us, right? So in Ayurveda we call this manas, and this manas is the part of us that just wants to say, I like it, I don't like it, right? And so if we let just our superficial preferences of like and dislike direct and guide our entire life, we'll never be able to go deeper. And now when we go deeper, we have a faculty that we need to sharpen and that we need to stoke the fire of. And this faculty is called buddhi. Buddhi is the faculty that each of us have, Buddhi. So your buddhi is your reasoning ability. It is the ability to discern, to see reality clearly for what it is. And so, for anyone who is experiencing a crystallization of the mind into the physical body that is results in pain or imbalance or ill health or chronic situation, chronic illness, chronic pain, um, then buddhi, then it is clouding your ability to see clearly, to see reality as it is. And one of our teachers used to say, you can try to force reality. You can live with reality as it is, or you can try to force reality to live with you. And it's like trying to move the ocean, would be like forcing reality to come live with you in your frame of mind. So rather, we want to be able to sharpen our buddhi and see reality for what it is, see things clearly, neutrally, and factually in such a way that our discernment is clear. We don't have leaky and loose boundaries. We don't overgive. We don't over or under stimulate our senses. We don't misuse our senses. We basically have a really refined ability to listen to our intuition, our inner guidance, and we are guided every step of the way because buddhi is clear and discerning, right? And so this is one of the faculties that we want to make sure is honed. Now, buddhi, you'll remember this because a buddha is one who has a perfected buddhi, right? So a Buddha is more of the noun version, a personified. So someone who's a Buddha has perfected their buddhi, meaning they're able to see precisely, clearly, cleanly, without distortion, reality as it is. And in that, there's a neutrality. There's not the push and pull of manas, which is the like and dislike, this binary, I like it, I don't like it, I want that, I don't want that. And there's not the cloud of preference. And when we have a strong cloud of preference or a veil or a distortion due to belief systems, due to traumas, due to our upbringing, due to what society tells us, due to what we learned and now need to unlearn because it's just indoctrinated my mind into this way of thinking that I never even popped out of and saw clearly. We need to lift those veils. And part of lifting those veils is honing buddhi. Now, buddhi is in direct allyship. When buddhi is clear, it allows the true soul of you to shine through. So behind this whole antakarana, all of these different energetic organs that we didn't know we had, behind all of these different faculties of mind and self and ego and identity and all of that is sitting this pure flame of awareness. It's just witnessing. It's just being. It's in total, utter stillness. And this is the emanation of the divine. That is you. This is Atma. Atma. Which is not really a translatable, but we can kind of start to understand the vastness of Atma, our pure witness, as our soul or our true spirit, our greater spirit. And our Atma, which is our emanation of the divine, of Paramatma that lives in our heart, it's our unique drop. Our Atma is simply just witnessing and watching all of the experiences that you've had over this lifetime, over many lifetimes, and is watching the lessons that you're learning and is trying to help you. Is trying to help you learn the lessons and show up in a different way. Because when we show up in a different way and we relate to the patterns of the past in a new way, that karma doesn't have to play out in that way anymore because the lesson has been learned. And if there's any kind of emotional challenge that you've been plagued by, that you've been burdened by, it's really, there's an opportunity for buddhi to be brightened and sharpened and to allow the light of soul in to come to totally pop out of this small enclosed experience when your nervous system contracts and gets small and tightens. But there's a way to actually zoom out, open up, widen open, breathe, and reconnect. And so I want to share with you one of the most poignant and powerful prayers that is, it's a Sanskrit prayer. It's very simple. It doesn't matter your belief systems. Anyone with any religious background can still sing this prayer. It's just an essence prayer, but it is helping us to sharpen buddhi. And buddhi is, when it's purified, when it's sharpened, that discernment, buddhi is a mirror to your true self. It's a mirror to soul. So this prayer helps bring us into right relationship with buddhi, our inner Buddha nature, and our true self, our witness self, our Atma, and ultimately our Paramatma, the ultimate source of Atma, where Purnamida, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, all where we stemmed from, the emanation of the divine that we came from. So connecting with this all powerful, all knowing, all compassionate, all loving source of love and wisdom itself, source of creation itself, allows a flood of healing to come into the psyche. And it's also, you're engaging the mind. Now, rather than the mind being free to go off and do its thing, meaning its dance with the veils of pain, of disillusionment, of bewilderment, and repeating the same patterns that it knows, we actually engage the mind, like we said earlier, as the ally to our spirit and our spiritual growth. We engage the mind through this mantra, which allows them all to line up in a healthy order, so that all parts can be on board and starting to tap into the energy that they've been separated from, that longing comes from. So I'm going to put this prayer, a link to this prayer, in the chat box. And it's the Om Asatoma Sadgamaya prayer. We're going to sing it together several times in this session right now, so you can get an experience of it. Some of you might also like the sources of the other prayers, and I will be happy to share those. I'll share them at the end. And if you're watching this as a recording, they'll be linked below this video as well. So they'll all be there. So this particular prayer is basically a call to the divine. It's basically it is that courage, that fierce tenderness that we spoke of in the opening meditation prayer. I'm just peeking at it right now. That it is that it's an invocation, but it's a calling. So from that place of longing, from that place of confusion, from that place of pain and suffering, from that place of darkness, you can call out to the divine and come back to a remembrance. So this prayer is saying, Om Asatoma Sadgamaya. O Lord, O divine source, O however you call God, please lead me from unreal to real. Lead this mind from darkness to light. Lead this mind from fear into faith. Lead this mind, lift these veils of illusion. Lead me from what's illusory energy, creating this confusion and bewilderment. Lead me to the truth. Lead me to clarity. So it is a call to Buddhi to be a mirror of that true divine witness in you. So it essentially, Om Asatoma Sadgamaya, means lead me from unreal to real, or may I be lead me from unreal to real. So lead me from this clouded confusion, that's cyclical, never ending cloud. Lead me, cut through this and lead me to the clear truth, right? Sat. Sat is truthfulness, the essence of all that is holy, pure, true, clean, clear, neutral, right? Because in sharpening buddhi, we're creating a neutral territory that is free of all the clutter of the mind and all the confusing thoughts and mental speculations that keep going in a circle. So, Om Asatoma Sadgamaya. Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. So tamas is the energy of inertia, and it is the it's like the essence of darkness, inertia, confusion. It represents our ignorance, the parts of us that reside in our blind spots when we can't see. So those prayers, help me lift out of this state of blindness, this state of ignorance, and bring me to the light. Jyoti is the light, the divine light. Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. Lead me from the darkness of my confusion into the light of the truth. And then it says, Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Mrit is referring to death. So anything associated with death, the fear of death, the fear of this body dying, or everything that I know in my material world to be ending, but it's also the fear of the death of the ego, because and the lower nature of the mind, because these patterns and traumatic imprints that we've had, they're all we know, especially if you experienced trauma or neglect or some kind of imprint in your developmental years as a child. there's like a there's a strange comfort because it's all you know, and there's this fear, there's this, I don't know who I am without that. I don't know if that goes away, something's got to replace it. What who do I become? I don't even know who I am without that, right? So that developmental conditioning becomes ingrained. And as much as we might be seekers on this path of healing to resolve these issues, there's a part of us that's terrified to let go, because it's become the identity. It's become the ahankar. It's become a part of this identity of self. It's part of my person. It's part of my persona. I don't know how to interact or engage with others or the world if I'm not coming from this place. What does it look like? Right? So these are all the fears of the lower self. So this prayer is saying, Mrityorma amritam gamaya. So it's saying, lead me out of this fear. Lead me out of this fear of the unknown, this fear of the death, the fear of this, I don't know who I'm going to be. Let me not be caught in that fear. And let me instead be filled with the amrita. The amrita is the the nectar of immortality. Amrita literally means nectar, but it's like it's the nectar of the gods, if you will. It's the nectar of immortality. It's grace in a form that is substance. Let me know it in my bones that I am not of this world, that I am connected to something eternal and greater than this world. And may my personality and persona and identity be guided by this all loving source of life itself. Let me orient, right, from the fear to the ultimate truth. So you'll see in the translation a very simplified version of this, but this is all part of what this means. And because Sanskrit is not a conversational language, it's an essence language, although we can use it to communicate things, but it's a vibrational, these are vibrational syllables that mean in your whole being something so much more than what we can translate. But our mind does need to know a little bit of what we're chanting for it to be able to relax into, the prayer itself and it as a practice itself. So Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So just starting to kind of tune in to this essence of this prayer. We're going to sing it together a few times. I don't know, 3 to 5 times. I'll let you know. But you can bring in a little bit more of your own feeling state into it. Bring in your own conviction. There's going to be a little bit of learning curve as you learn how to pronounce the words, but you easily catch on. And as soon as you catch on, start to let it flow and just really connect in with the cutting through of all that has been ailing you, that has been confusing you, the patterns that may feel like they have control over you. They don't. We get to put all of this in its right place. All the lower parts of you that may be struggling will be fed through the chanting of mantra. And then they start to develop a taste for this higher food. And they start to go, oh, I get so many more of my needs met here by aligning with this vibration. And so it becomes easier to repattern as a result. So let us chant. I'm also just going to put, hopefully you've opened it, I'm also going to put the words in the chat box so you can see it directly. Thank you all for your comments and your participation. So we exhale all the air out. Take a full breath in and we'll just sing it easefully and casually together. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Keep going with the first 3 lines. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Good, keep going. Om asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Again. Om asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Two more times. Om asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Final one with Om Shanti. Om asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Take a pause and just notice. Beautiful. Thank you for singing. So, this prayer is extremely transformational, and I'd love to hear if any of you want to type in the chat, or feel free to just unmute yourself and have a brief share of how that felt, or what you experienced. And Maria said, I felt flooded with clarity and light energy for this beautiful mantra. Thank you. Yeah, it was this particular prayer really helps break through the blind spots, the layers of the veils, the layers of ignorance, of illusion and delusion. And really, if practiced regularly, sharpens buddhi, helps you connect to true self. I just, and helps to increase connection to true self. So I've personally used this prayer in some of the darkest moments of my life, of my healing journey, when some of the traumas were really up for me and just completely triggered. I would come back to this prayer. I would sing this prayer over and over and over. I would chant it under my breath during everything I was doing, or at times when I was so debilitated by emotion, I would, like, some part of me would be able would some fierce part of me where I was so collapsed by grief or an emotion that and sobbing that I couldn't even squeak out a sound. But some part of me pulled this mantra from the depths of my, because I have been singing it for a long time, and there was this period of time I hadn't probably sang it in several years, but in the moment of like deepest turmoil and need and sobbing, a part of my awareness brought it, delivered it to my conscious mind, and was like, Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tama so much, oh dear. And I had to like squeak it out. But I was just so committed. I was like, please, God, let me let me have a moment of lifting that veil so I can really see what's happening here, so I can show up with reality as it is and respond appropriately, not respond reactively, right? So if there's addictive behaviors that tend to have a grip over you, or self-deprecating behaviors, or self-negative inner talk, whenever you notice and become aware that something is happening inside of you, there's a prompting, please use this prayer. Please draw upon this tool. This is one of the most sacred and powerful tools I can give you. And it works, especially from a sincere heart. Don't try to just, you know, yield the power of the universe to do your will. No, surrender your heart, surrender your suffering, surrender the pain. Give it back to where it came from. It's not yours to hold. Offer it up. And through this prayer, cut through the static of those lower energies that are alone and isolated and scared and don't know what to do, and introduce them to the holy, the source of all, the source of them. Nice to see you, Corey. You're welcome for emotional support. I'm glad it's emotionally supportive for you. Yeah. And then Kendra, thanks for saying hi, Kendra. Kendra said, I closed my eyes when we finished singing and felt launched into meditation energy. I could see the star stuff behind my eyelids. Thank you, thank you. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I know, and it's hard to come back into talking sometimes after doing these chants, right? Like, even for me, I'm chanting with you, and I'm like, but, part of my prayer is that, oh, may it propel me into a place that can be of greater service. May my own stuff as a teacher, as a practitioner, as a counselor, as a therapist, like, may my stuff get out of the way so that I can just show up for you in clarity as a student, as a client, as someone who's receiving this information. May I be a clear vessel and channel for the teachings. We're all just walking each other home on this path back to remembrance. Maria said, I now realize that mantras are such a powerful portal to the unmanifest. Yes. Good, Corey. I'm glad you got some good support and that you're here. Beautiful. So Where shall we continue? Okay, I want to give you another practical kind of bringing this back. So there are going to be at times, so I encourage you to use this prayer. In fact, both of the prayers that I've shared so far, including the practices, the breathwork practices from the beginning, plus the two prayers, Om Purnamida Purnamidam. These ones help connect with that energy of the divine and the light and really reinforce that we are an extension of the divine. We are droplets of rays of sun from source. And in such, we know where our source came from. It's not an ego boost, but rather we know where our source comes from, and we know that that source lives inside of us, is our true self. And so that prayer can help reinforce that. I encourage you, sing it every morning, right out of bed. Go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, sit maybe in front of an altar with a little incense or a candle or just a flower, wherever, whatever little space in your home you can, or your meditation cushion, and chant that chant and do the breath work and let it propel you into a deeper meditation. And then the Om Asatoma prayer is also an amazing one. And in that order, breath work, Purnamida, and Om Asatoma, in that order, because if you sing the Om Asatoma prayer at the beginning of your day, at the onset of your day, first of all, the early morning is a microcosm that you have access to every single day for repatterning your childhood, because the early morning is analogous to the early childhood. So if you want to repattern the nervous system, sing these prayers right out of bed in the morning. Okay? So, ideally, go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, put some water in your face, on your eyes, and just sit. Do this breath work, 3-part breathing, the humming breath, the Hari Om, then Om Purnamida, Purnamidam, then Asatoma Sadgamaya. Now I set this as the stage of my day. I am making my prayer to God and the universe that I see clearly and that I am led from the tamasic nature of the ignorance into the transcendental awareness. Now I'm positioned to show up in the world in as closely connected to my true self as I can. And so there are some indicators that you're in self energy, and then there are some indicators which I think you already know when you're not in self energy, which is anything other than the indicators. So when you're in fear, when you're in doubt, when you're in unclarity, cloudy mind, when you are reactive, right? When you are following just habituated patterns, then we're not coming from self energy, we're coming from the lower nature. So in those moments you can also sing the Om Asatoma prayer, and just to reconnect to self and to continue honing buddhi, because at least you can then catch, I'm deviating from self. Now, it's unrealistic to think like I'm going to be in self all the time, but it's okay to have that as a standard of something you want to strive for, because at the very least, what it does is it creates space between the true you and the parts of you that have been suffering. So the emotional parts of you, the hurt parts of you, these are parts of you. They're not you. And in order to support the parts, which we will go into more next month, is you need to create some space between the you and the parts of you. And then there are so many parts of you that live inside of your inner world, your inner kingdom, or your inner family, as we sometimes call it. But all of these different parts of you, they have had different experiences, and they have been burdened, and they have been struggling, and they have been pulling the strings of your physiology to try to get your attention, and they've been hurting, and they've been creating bodily sensations, and they've been creating confusion, and they've been creating everything that you're experiencing in your external life today. And so, and they need your help. And when I say you, I mean capital YU. They need and want and have been waiting for your help. So when you hear this term, you're the one you've been waiting for. It's the capital YU. It's not the lower parts of you that are fearful and scared and feel incapable that have to then go save everybody. No, it's the true you, the divine you, the capital S self. This light of truth, this inner source that lives inside of your innermost heart, this is the one that all these parts of you have been waiting for. And so your job is only to facilitate a relationship between the two of them so that this aspect of the divine can bring help and healing to these parts. But in order to be able to help the parts, you need to create space between you and the parts. And you create space by strengthening your connection to the divine so that when you introduce them to the parts, there's an effortless connection and the parts don't take over you because you can't help them if they take over you. Okay, so I hope this is making sense a little bit. So some of the indicators. So just think about, and you can do this in your journal too, and you can do this in the chat as well. So what are qualities of divine energy? Like if you were to meet, and I like to personify it because things become more tangible, make more sense. If you imagine you were to meet the most spiritual person you've ever met, the most enlightened, truly humble, kind, gentle being, right? Like if your lineage is Christianity or Catholicism, if you were to meet Jesus, who is this character? What does he embody? Or if you were to meet Buddha, or if you were to meet Kuan Yin, or if you were to meet Mother Mary, or if you were to meet Krishna, or if you were to meet Allah, right? And you could connect, what would be the qualities of this being if we had to, and you can do this as a separate exercise outside of our class, but this is a beautiful thing to start contemplating, but it's also right there in all of the ancient texts and scriptures, the qualities of the divine, and the qualities of the divine that we can carry ourselves. And we'll sum it up in just like a couple, like in very, very simplistic terms, in terms of how it relates to you relating to the parts of you. You know that you are connected to self, capital S self. You know that you're in self energy when you are feeling. These are my first three favorite C's. A bunch of C's. Calm, when you're feeling calm. And in that calmness, there's like a neutrality. There's this neutrality of like, I'm calm and my calmness doesn't depend on an external circumstance. I feel neutral. It can go this way or that way. Either way, I'm okay. Right? So that's calm. Clarity. Mind is clear. I'm not having intrusive thoughts, right? There's just a clarity. There might be the mind is wide. So in that clarity, there's a widening of the mind. There's an openness. And in that openness comes a curiosity. Oh, a curiosity or a wonderment. And that might look like, instead of drawing a conclusion about something you're witnessing and something either you're witnessing in the inner realms or in the world around you, rather than coming to a conclusive, decisive, I know what this means, this is good or bad, this is right or wrong, you should or shouldn't be feeling that, I wish this feeling would go away. I wish I could feel more of this instead of that. I wish this wasn't such a problem. This is a problem, right? This is all kind of conclusive talk. Do you hear those examples? Versus a curiosity. So when there's an openness or a clarity of mind, a clearness of mind, there's like oh, isn't that interesting, right? There's like I'm curious to hear more about your experience, right? That's the energy. It doesn't have to be verbal, but like, oh, I wonder more about this. How can I zoom out, right? And so the way that can show up with our inner parts is like if I feel an emotion or some part of me is having an experience, we can be curious about that instead of conclusive, dismissive, disregarding. It's curious. Or if it's happening with like a friend or a partner or someone, a family member, it's like, wow, instead of assuming that that person's mood has anything to do with me, instead of me shutting down and coming to a conclusion, because conclusions create contraction, which creates, and then there's like the energy gets stuck. So it's like, oh, what if this person's mood or snappiness or anything had nothing to do with me? What if I did not take that personal? Oh, then I'm not in fear of protecting myself. Then I can be open and curious about this person's experience. Oh, I wonder what's going on for them. I wonder if they're okay, right? This is what I mean by curiosity. And of course, we're assuming that your external environment and everything is in fact a safe place. Okay, if there is any kind of abusive dynamics actually happening, it is completely appropriate to close and to have a boundary and to, right? But this isn't what we're talking about. We're talking about, you know, healthy environments of people that are around you that love and care about you. And we're talking about, creating a distinction between reactive parts of self that are overly reactive and the true self. So we know that we're in true self energy and connected to self energy when we're feeling calm, when we're feeling clear in our mind, when we have a wideness and an openness, a curiosity. And and then when we're feeling compassion, because as you know, all the essence of all religions will point to the love, right? Love, compassion, and like big heartedness. So when you can watch, experience someone close to you having an emotional experience and you're not drawing a conclusion, dismissing them, you know, belittling it, um, feeling angry or defensive as if their experience has something to do with you, and you can be in that kind of curiosity type of energy, then you can also take that into the next stage, which is compassion. And just having compassion, it's different than sympathy or empathy, where I have to pity. Sympathy is like pitying someone else. Empathy is I have to, you know, totally feel and take on what they're feeling. You might still feel their emotions. We're all human. We all, hopefully have some empathetic ability. It's very healthy to have that. But if you consider yourself like a highly sensitive empath and you take on too much because there was some kind of conditioning of like a martyrdom archetype or something where you internalize and you feel guilt and it's your fault, that's where compassion is a better marker. That's where softening and opening in terms of like, oh, this isn't about me, and it's also not mine. If I know that this is this person's experience and it's not mine, I can feel with them and I can have compassion with them, but I don't have to take it on, right? So these are some distinctions for you that I hope that are helpful. Some of the other ways we know we're connected to self is that we have a sense of creativity that naturally arises. because we're not burdened by the lower mind and its meanderings and its fears, its likes and dislikes, its attachments and aversions, its angers or frustrations, right? Um, we can we have an openness. We're connected to source. So creator is creative inherently. So when we're connected to true self, there's like a natural creativity that wants to flow, and that might express itself in a myriad of ways. It might express itself through the arts or through any kind of hobbies. So then that's one of the ways you're in true self energy, right? And you're remembering, you're seeing the divine, and you're hearing the divine, and you're right in this state of remembrance, rather than caught up in, um, what's the word? Rather than kind of caught up in the material confusions of this crazy world that is the external existence. So I hope these are making sense. A few other indicators that you're in, connected to true self. And the more you do your morning practices and your proactive practices, and that you maintain awareness of self throughout the day and you can cultivate these qualities to, come back to them and reinforce them, which is essentially watering the spiritual aspect of you. And in that, you have more resilience and more, what's the word? Resourcefulness. Resourcefulness to offer the parts of you that are waiting for your help, that do need your help, right? So, this sense of presence, patience, you have, in that clarity comes like a clear perspective. You're able to see clearly, and a lightheartedness. There's a lightheartedness that's another indicator of that you're connected to self, true self. There's a playfulness. You do not take everything so seriously. You can laugh, you can tease, you can engage in a light way. There's a playfulness. At some point you're in the middle of like, um, either like an emotional tiff with your partner, or just like you're watching a looping pattern of like self-deprecation come up or something like that, and all of a sudden you start laughing and it just like falls away, and you're like, okay, self energy is getting really strong because I don't have to follow this downward spiral anymore. I can just stop and catch myself in the pattern and not take myself so seriously and I'm not berate or guilt myself for being in the pattern in the first place. I can just catch it and be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm doing that thing again." Ah! And you can laugh about it. So that quality of playfulness is actually a divine quality. This is an indicator that you're connected to true self. Any questions so far? Yes, love, compassion, Radhika. Beautiful. All right. So I did also mention that, so mantra, man is mind, so that means manas, that's short, the root of mind, manas, and tra is short for trayati, which is an action or a tool. So mantra is like a tool for the mind. And like we said, the mind is always consuming. And if it isn't given, if it's usually given junk food. So we usually give our minds junk food, let's be honest. The majority, like every bit of like the addiction we have to our phones, our devices, and scrolling, it's junk food. It's little bits of snacks without any real depth. It perpetuates materialism, consumerism, feeling of lack, feeling like separation between us and others, comparison between us and others. It is junk food for the mind, but the mind needs to consume, so it just keeps scrolling, right? What's other junk food for the mind? The mind is constantly consuming, so if it's not given something to eat, it is going to start regurgitating and eating its own regurgitation, which is disgusting, but this is what our mind does. Okay, so the mind will fabricate things if it's not properly engaged. And so this will create a downward spiral for you emotionally and physically. So what are the foods? So this is a prompt for you to reflect on after class. Is write in your journal, what do I feed my mind all day long? Right? And you can think about it in chunks of the day. What do you feed your mind in the morning? What do you feed your mind during breakfast? What do you feed your mind in the first half of, the work day? 6 to 8, 8 to 10, 10 to 12, 12 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 6 to 8, 8 to 10. What are you feeding your mind during these 2 blocks of time? You can literally block it out as time blocks and take a little, take a little inventory. Take an inventory for like 3 days and write in those little time blocks, 6 to 8, 8 to 10, 10 to 12, 12 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 6 to 8, 8 to 10. If those are the times you're awake. What are you feeding your mind during these times, right? What's the major thing I fed my mind during these 2 hours? Was it worries? Was it fears? Was it stuff the mind was fabricating? Was it thinking about XYZ? Like, start to actually take inventory of what your mind is consuming. How long did I spend watching a show, a movie, Netflix, Amazon Prime Video? How long did I scroll on the computer? How much of my time was spent, what was I reading? What was I feeding myself? What was I feeding myself? What was I feeding this mind? What was I listening to? What news was I watching? What information was coming in? Because the food for your mind is directly correlated to how the crystallization of your body and how much past imprints you're able to actually cleanse out of there. Because if you keep eating and you never fast, how are you supposed to cleanse the body? Right? You can't keep eating junk food and expect the body to get purified. So if you want the mind to show up and do something different, and be cleansed of fear or so and so, fear, frustration, hardship, sufferings, then you need to feed it something different, right? So feeding the mind junk food. So take a really honest inventory. And when you look at that, go, okay, what is the first thing I can swap? So you do that as an inventory, and then you look at it and you say, okay, I can most easily let go of this junk food. So for these time blocks, I'm not gonna I'm gonna not allow myself to feed my mind those things. Right? For example, if from 6 to 8 in the morning or from 8 to 10 in the morning, you are spending time, reading, watching the news, reading, the Twitter feed or the Instagram feed, and the people that you're following on there are doom and gloomers, and you're feeding your mind that, or fear-based things, right? Like, what else can you replace in those 2 hours? Okay, so you just kind of take the inventory. And then the next thing is you take a clean sheet of paper and you write out all the things you'd actually love to feed the mind that you think are supportive for your mind and your spiritual growth. I'm not talking like, false affirmation statements that the mind's going to push up against and you say, I am peaceful. And the mind's like, no, I'm not peaceful. And then, like, I'm talking about like something with depth, like feeding your mind really uplifting, like mantra, spiritual, like scriptures, reading audiobooks, listening to audiobooks on topics that are really enjoying, like that are really joyful, enriching for you in your spiritual life, enriching for you in your heart, beautiful, artistic, right? Things that, because these are all connected to self, beauty and art and all of that, things that are uplifting to you, things that help you see the good in the world, the beauty in the world, and help you hear stories of other people who are saintly people, right? Listening. So write a whole list. Um, do some searches. If you're going to use computer time, use those computer time searches for to watch documentaries and to read memoirs and audiobooks of saintly people, people that have actually realized God in their lifetime, right? Like those types of things, or listen to different kinds of Vedic texts or studies. Listen to the chanting of books like the Bhagavad Gita, whether it's sung in Sanskrit or in read in English. Like just listen to these beautiful books on Audible, on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple iTunes. Like they're free everywhere. Better food for your mind is everywhere. Find someone, find something that appeals to you, that quenches your thirst for connection to something deeper and something greater than yourself. And this will be food that enhances your mind, that helps widen the perspective, that helps bring clarity to buddhi. Listen to mantra chanting over and over and over the same mantra for like an hour. You can find mantras on YouTube that are 1, 2, 3, 4 hours long, just repetitive mantra. And that can be playing in the background. So when the this the backdrop of your mind becomes mantra, it's constantly purifying the mind. It's constantly increasing your connection to self and to source. And it is creating space between you and the lower parts of you that are struggling, that are having a hard time, and that need your support, that are waiting for your support. So you have your inventory, your list. How am I spending my time, and how am I actually feeding my mind? What are the sensory inputs? And what are the first, then like put little stars next to what are the few time blocks in there that I'm willing to offer up, to give up, to choose something else. Then I make a list. Then I start researching all the things that would be really uplifting to me, and the places that I can find them, right? I just rattled off a whole bunch of ideas. And then pick one and then replace it into that little spot and start feeding your mind the higher food. And the mind will start developing a higher taste. The mind won't want to eat that other stuff because the mind starts becoming an ally to your higher self. Now the real magic begins. Now the real healing begins. Now the space between is established. So now we can start to facilitate conversation between the true self part of you and these parts of you that have trauma or have been holding burdens. Okay. And now, and just as a side note, um, I do, this is what I do in my practice, is these 3 steps. So the 3 steps that we've been covering over the last several months of creating safety in the nervous system through all the physical um, transformative tools of Ayurveda, creating safety in the nervous system through diet, through various practices of oiling the body, and um, and through connecting to the divine. And in that, this and now increasing connection to self, and we start to create some separation, we start to create some witnessing between self and these parts of us. Now we can go into the next phase, which is starting to resolve those painful imprints and those challenges that the parts of you have been waiting for. So we do all the breath work And we do, this is how I guide my clients, and giving you in these workshops exactly how I guide my clients, except that we facilitate it um, very directly and specifically to them. And I sent this out in the email to all of you just to let you know that if this conversation is calling to your heart and is feeling like you need more support, if you're interested in working together, I have 2 spots that have opened on my calendar, that are opening on my calendar. So you can book one of those spots, and we can explore if working together in a therapeutic setting feels like the right time for you in that. So if you're ready to, take the next step in diving into all this and really personalizing and applying this greater wisdom and guidance that I'm providing in the workshops, just know that that opportunity is window is opening. And so if you feel called, feel free to reach out to me. And I'll put those links. I think I have them right here, actually. I'll put this in the chat, and it'll also be below the video recording. So you can email me or just book on the calendar. My email is hello@alicialyndiaz.com. And okay, so kind of wrapping up for today is that please, my biggest encouragement over this next month until we meet next on the first Wednesday of August is to just really prioritize spiritual connection as best as you can with what resources you have right now. Embrace this with a really can-do attitude. Just establish a little place you can sit at home, establish a little altar or sacred little space. Every morning, get out of bed, brush your teeth, go to the bathroom, and sit there. Even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes, you do the breathing practices from the beginning of our session, sing those 2 prayers, write them down or print them out, sing those 2 prayers, and just set that intention for your day. To strengthen buddhi, to strengthen connection to true self, to engage with and identify more with the witness, that sense of being, with the witness of your life, the source of your life, so that the parts of you that need your support, that need resolution around the things that have been plaguing them and challenging them and burdening them and hurting them, so that you can be connected to source and strong enough to actually facilitate healing with them. All right. So please, please, please continue beyond this session. Don't let this just be another workshop you take that's informational and that you forget about tomorrow. Really take this to heart and apply this wisdom, because it works and you deserve it. And this is why you're here. This is why we're here. We are animals, but we are also humans. And the way we are like animals is 4 ways. What we're constantly engaged in, and what animals are constantly engaged in, is eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. This is part of our animal nature. How much time do we spend focusing on food, where to get more food, how to get more food, what to eat, how to make it taste better, how to make it be healthier, right? The obsession with food. Sleep and everything that comes with that, getting enough of it, not enough of it, the perfect bed, the meditations to help you sleep, all of that. Mating, everything to do with, attraction to the other sex life, right? And all of its complications, and especially if there's trauma in that realm, the complications there. And defending, which is our sense of physical security, safety, and fear-based thinking, right? This is a survival-based thinking. So we share these 4 things in common with every animal, living creature out there in the world. But we have been graced by God to have a human body which allows us to cognize and wake up and choose these these higher faculties, which is actually coming back to the divine. So, not to say that all animals aren't divine or have awareness in their consciousness, but as humans, we do have special attributes that allow us, right? Because animals in the wild, they don't take more than they need, they don't exploit others. Maybe unless there's like crisis and they do get into funny behaviors. But humans, we're constantly exploiting. We get greedy. We take more than we need and we try to defend that. We create separation, right? So we have these different opportunities as human being. And in this one life, you can utilize it to remember God, to remember the divine, to offer this will, this choice to choose our lower nature, our animalistic nature, or our higher nature. We have the opportunity to choose that in this life. And so if you're here and you're on a path of genuine healing and resolving trauma, what if the wound is, in fact, where the light enters, where that illumination, where our quest for healing is actually aligning with our deeper longing to reunite with the one who created us, with our higher self, true self, with the divine? And what if these ancient sciences were actually exactly a pathway to do that, which all of the Vedic sciences are? Proven path. Ayurveda is a whole system of medicine that is geared towards helping this human vessel come back into alignment and remembrance of the divine. That's the whole point. So allow yourself to soften back into this journey, and please utilize these tools that have been given to us to remember and to help the parts of us that are in pain, that have forgotten, to help them remember. And so may we facilitate that remembrance and that conversation. It's not enough to just think it. It's not enough to just be like, oh yeah, I already know that. That's the phrase I know, or I already know that, or anything in that realm. The phrase I know is the biggest detriment of the ego. Ego thinks, oh, I already heard that already. Oh, I already know. Oh, yeah, she told me to do that thing. I already know that. But it's different to embody it, to know something in your bones. All these sages and saintly beings that have fully realized God, that it's like they're floating. They've realized something that we definitely don't know. And if we could just get a drop of their mercy and their support in remembrance, we would see this and experience this whole world, and as well as resolving the traumas and the parts of our lower nature that have come back here in these bodies to resolve once and for all. It's all about giving it back up. I hope that this session served you, and please forgive me for my limitations in teachings and for my probably superficial understanding of most of these topics. As much as I've been a devoted student and practitioner for the last 12 years, I have a long way to go. So thank you for listening, and may we all be lifelong students on this path and continue in humble gratitude to remind each other of our true nature, of our wholeness, and of continuing to bring us back to the source of true healing and the infinite love that is here and available for us. So we'll just do our closing prayers, and if there's any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you for your love and blessings to all. Thank you, Maria and Radhika. So nice to have you. Hmm.
So, Alicia, I want to ask you, do you have these sessions? I mean, this is the first time I've joined. So, do you have them often?
Oh, yeah, once a month, the first Wednesday of every month.
Okay.
Yeah, so please come back and join us again. And the replays will be up on my YouTube channel. And if you're on my email list, you'll get a reminder. Usually, I send out a reminder the day before the
Mhm.
first Wednesday of each month. And it's always the same link and everything, same time, same place, just the first Wednesday of every month.
Thank you so much. I've
Mm,
been a student of Vedanta, but I think this was truly awesome.
Such an honor to support you. Thank you. I'm excited to have you back, Radhika.
Yes.
Namaste,
Looking
namaste.
for
Mm, beautiful. Hmm. So we'll chant Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Many blessings to you all. Thank you for being here live and for staying through the session. Lots of love. I look forward to seeing you next month, next August, first Wednesday of August. I will send a reminder via email. Alrighty, lots of love to you all. Blessings.